The greatest comeback story in the NFL is no longer a story. It's a one. Sam Darnold is real. Seattle is loaded. And every contender just got put on notice.
Say it with your chest. There's organizations with leaders that don't deserve to be leading because they don't know what the hell they're doing. And they're the ones that got people like me and others believing that Sam Darnold don't have it. They're the ones that got us believing he can't get it done. They're the ones that got us believing, well, maybe, just maybe, the brother got skills, but he just don't have that it factor or whatever. Based on what Sam Darnold is doing, hell, maybe Baker Mayfield can get you to a Super Bowl. Maybe Dak Prescott will pull a miracle and he'll get you to a Super Bowl. Maybe Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen will finally get over the hump.
Sam Darnold's coming off of another outstanding season. Everything that GM John Schneider touched last year turned into gold, from Sam Darnold to Gray Zabel as a first-round draft pick to Nicky Manwari as a trade-up second-round draft pick. Nolan Teasley has been plucked as the general manager for the Minnesota Vikings, leaving Seattle. But John Schneider, setting records, the first executive to win 2 Super Bowls with 2 completely different rosters, doing that over a decade apart. Really impressive multi-year rebuild, really, for Seattle. I thought their depth had taken a hit for a few years, but since the 2023 NFL draft, you'd argue the best drafting team, and it all came to fruition last year in a Super Bowl win.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what 12 months or one kind of run of the Midas touch can have for an executive. I mean, Schneider was kind of being talked about as being on the hot seat for a period, and then he has a 12-month period where everything he does turns to gold. Absolutely nailed it. Not all of it was sort of voluntarily, right? Like Geno Smith kind of wanted out, right? DK Metcalf wanted out. Like there were things that they did that I don't think he necessarily was proactively driving, but just roll with the punches and made it work. And then he's like unquestionably like executive of the year, Hall of Famer, setting records. It's amazing the way that the story can flip. But the job they've done has been spectacular. I mean, they had a Lions type of draft where you just nail everything, and like all the other stuff they nailed. The ancillary stuff, the veteran stuff, the Geno out, Sam Darnold in, the coaching stuff, everything. They nailed all of it.
JSN took such a step forward last year, man. Going from a guy who looked like, hey, he's a good route runner, he gets open, started catching the ball more effectively than he did earlier in his career, but he's just open behind the defense left and right. And then they added Rashid Shaheed, who's always open behind the defense, and Cooper Kupp added a nice possession complement to it. The offense really came together, and then you have 2 straight years, by the way, of Sam Darnold being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And that's a huge story and a reason why, of course, Seattle won it.
Yeah, for different coaches in different cities, different environments. Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's time to accept Darnold's just good. There's a lot of talent there. Look, the receiving core, I mean, when they traded away DK Metcalf, it was a projection to say that JSN could step into that number 1 role and what that would look like. And not only did he do that, but he wildly exceeded expectations and just looked like the best receiver in the NFL. And then, as you said, they traded for Rashid Shaheed. Torrey Horton was drafted, is coming back from injury. Maybe there's some redundancy with him and Shaheed, but you could also see that as contingency, as a backup plan if Shaheed goes down.
Yeah, I'll go over again. I think the NFC West is actually the best division in football because of the top-heavy nature of it. I think Seattle, honestly, might be better on paper this year than they were last year, even with some of the losses, because what we've seen, because we know what JSN is capable. Like, we didn't know that JSN was capable of what he did last year.
Right.
But now that we do, it's like, man, they might even be better than they were last year when they won the Super Bowl. Like you said with the Rams, doesn't mean, like, weird stuff happens in football games, right? But doesn't mean they're definitely going to go back-to-back, but they'll be right in the mix at the end. I would not be surprised to see Rams Seahawks in the NFC Championship once again.
Yeah.
Seahawks were, look, I don't know if they were better than the Texans defense. I think the Rams, though, were like the only team that had success against Seattle, and then early season Bucs. Everyone else, their pass defense is incredible. I think Mike McDonald is now across 2 different places showing what he's capable of building on the defensive side. And if you were to, there's many ways to characterize Mike McDonald's defense, too high and, what they're able to do. But when they had the 23 Ravens defense, when you just looked across the board and it's like, I don't know if there's any stars, but they're solid. Kyle Hamilton's a star maybe, but they are solid. You get the same type of vibe from Seattle, right? Like you could say Byron Murphy or Leonard Williams was ranked as the top defensive tackle among NFL executives. Maybe he's the star. Maybe, Devin Witherspoon's the star. Maybe Nick Emanwari is the star, but they are very good across the board, the starting 11.
The NFL made one massive mistake. They gave up on Sam Darnold. They labeled him. They buried him. They decided he was just another talented quarterback who never had what it took to become a winner. But now, that same quarterback has become the nightmare every contender has to prepare for. Because Sam Darnold did something the NFL almost never sees. He changed his entire legacy. For years, people said he had the arm. They said he had the talent. But they questioned his mentality. They questioned his ability to lead. They questioned whether he had that special quality that separates good quarterbacks from champions. And maybe the biggest mistake was believing the situation around him did not matter. Because Seattle proved something important. Sometimes a player is not broken. Sometimes the environment is. With the right coaches, the right system, and the right teammates, Sam Darnold became the quarterback everyone thought he could never become. And now the conversation has completely changed. If Sam Darnold can go from being written off to leading Seattle's championship future, then maybe the NFL needs to rethink every quarterback evaluation. Maybe Baker Mayfield can lead a team all the way. Maybe Dak Prescott does not need a perfect situation. Maybe Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are closer than people think. Because Sam Darnold just proved one thing. A career can change overnight. But this comeback was not created by one player. It was built by an organization that refused to stay average. The biggest surprise about Seattle's rise is that it was not an accident. It was a plan. John Schneider spent years rebuilding this roster piece by piece. And suddenly, every decision started looking brilliant. The move for Sam Darnold. The selection of Gray Zabel. The aggressive trade to get Nick Emanwari. The development of young talent. The veteran additions. Everything started connecting. Just months earlier, people were questioning whether Schneider was still the right person to lead Seattle. Some believed the franchise was losing direction. But then, the impossible happened. Almost every major decision worked. Seattle transformed from a team searching for answers into a Super Bowl-level contender. Schneider's greatest achievement is not simply winning. It is building two different championship-caliber teams in completely different eras. A decade apart. Different players. Different identity. Same result. A Lombardi Trophy. That is what separates great executives from everyone else. They do not just find talent. They create environments where talent becomes dangerous. And Seattle's biggest transformation came from the position that matters most. The quarterback? The truth about Sam Darnold is simple. The talent was always there. The NFL just stopped believing. Different teams. Different coaches. Different systems. But the same player was always underneath. Seattle unlocked him. For 2 straight seasons, Darnold has played with the confidence of someone who finally knows he belongs. And that confidence changes everything. A quarterback playing scared tries to avoid mistakes. A quarterback playing free attacks defenses. That is the version Seattle discovered. The version nobody expected. The version that makes opponents nervous. Because now defenses cannot simply wait for Darnold to fail. They have to deal with a quarterback who already survived the hardest challenge, the doubt. But even the best quarterbacks need weapons. And Seattle quietly built one of the deepest offensive groups in football, When Seattle moved on from DK Metcalf, many believed the offense lost its biggest weapon. The question was obvious. Who becomes the #1 receiver? The answer shocked the league. Jaxon Smith-Njigba did not simply replace Metcalf. He became the centerpiece. Early in his career, JSN was viewed as a talented route runner, a player with potential. But last season, he became something completely different. He became a true difference maker. He started winning difficult catches. He became more efficient. He became impossible to ignore. Defenses could no longer treat him as just another receiver. Then, Seattle added even more problems. Rashid Shaheed brought elite speed. One mistake in coverage could become a 60-yard disaster. Cooper Kupp brought experience and reliability. The perfect balance. Speed, precision, consistency. Seattle no longer needs one player to save the offense. They have multiple weapons capable of destroying a defense. And that creates the biggest nightmare in football. You cannot stop everyone. But offense is only half the story. Because Seattle's defense might be even more terrifying. The most dangerous teams in football are not built around one superstar. They are built around an identity. And Mike McDonald has created exactly that. His defense is not about collecting famous names. It is about discipline. Every player understands his role. Every player trusts the system. Every player executes. That is why Seattle feels similar to the great Baltimore defenses McDonald helped create. A complete unit. Not just one or two stars. You can point to Leonard Williams, a dominant defensive tackle. You can point to Byron Murphy. You can point to Devin Witherspoon. You can point to Nick Emenwari. Seattle has individual talent, but the real weapon is how they play together. That is what makes championship defenses different. They do not depend on one hero. The entire group becomes the problem. The NFC West is becoming football's battlefield. The Rams are dangerous. The 49ers remain a threat. The Cardinals continue improving. But Seattle has something different. They have proof. They already showed the league what happens when everything comes together. A quarterback nobody trusted. A general manager everybody questioned. A young roster nobody expected to explode. A defense nobody wants to face. Of course, repeating is never easy. Injuries happen. One bad game can end everything. But Seattle is not entering the season hoping to compete. They are entering knowing they belong. The biggest comeback story in the NFL is no longer about Sam Darnold proving people wrong. It is about the rest of the league trying to stop what Seattle built. Because the quarterback they abandoned became their biggest weapon. And the team everyone underestimated became the team everyone fears.
Yo, mic check 1 to 2, -1, -2. Game over for this video, folks. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to stay in the huddle for more. This is NFL Madness, bringing the heat and signing out.